Hello, it's Miss Emma. SSP Dream Team teachers can send me clips of their students, the students they're worried about, or just students they want more ideas for, want some advice, want me to evaluate what I can see from the footage. What I actually ask for is the monster routine and for the child to be reading some decodable text at their code level. Now I'm about to launch the Monster Routine standalone pack. So you get the Monster Routine pack, which is normally $37.50, plus an extra set of monster cards, which is $15, and you get an instruction booklet, how to use the monster routine. This focuses on that initial stage of the monster routine using the green code level monsters, SAT pin. If parents and teachers are using this with the students, with every student, it means that everybody really understands the foundations of the SSP approach, the foundation of code mapping, of encoding and decoding. We do this with strips of decodable text. So in the pack are strips of green code level decodable text with the monsters. So just that pack, just focusing on those 6 sounds, it's great for the early years, it's great for parents of children who are struggling, it's great for homeschooling parents, and it's great for anyone who just wants to understand the basics of SSP. I've also actually created this pack as a standalone phonemic awareness kit. The standalone Monster Routine pack will be sold on sspmonstermapping.com. Now, if parents get the Parent Dream Team, it's $185, takes them to the end of the academic year. It includes a full set of spelling clouds for their walls with the monsters on it. It gives them access to the planning pages, which has lots of additional resources. So it literally goes through day 1, day 2, day 3. It also has access to the support page on Facebook for parents. You've got access to be able to submit things about your children so that I can evaluate them, but it's a really fantastic collaborative project. And in with this, parents also get, although you can download it as an app, but you also get access to codecrackers.com.au, which has your 4 phonics code levels. So the monster routine really shows how to start using the green code level, the first code level. Then you just have a lot better understanding of SSP. But the code level videos are the 4 code level videos. They're your phonics videos and your high frequency word videos. That's 400 sight words, high frequency words, whatever you want to call them. And it's also got online decodable readers, so lots of reinforcement of the code in meaningful context. But there's all sorts of things you can get with that. So if parents have the new Monster Routine standalone pack and get the Parent Dream Team pack as well, they are taking an early intervention approach to reading and spelling, and certainly will reinforce what your child is doing at school if they're working with an SSP teacher. But think how great it is when you're not just getting information about a program, you're actually able to talk about your child. And that's what I'm doing with teachers. Obviously it's within limit. If I get 3,000 videos a day, I can't possibly analyse them all. But I'm trying to do it as much as I can, and that's all just part of your membership. So the teachers can have the membership of $185 to the end of the academic year for the teaching group. So imagine how useful that is. And this is just what a teacher did. A teacher sent me 2 videos of 2 students to say, how can I become a better, more effective SSP teacher? So I'm going to analyse it for her. In confidence, no teacher, student names used. It's not actually the monster routine, it's just sort of little bits of it. But I just want to talk you through what I can see just from these videos, because the 2 students in these videos are very typical for every reception foundation prep classroom across Australia and actually any English speaking country. You'll have around 2, 3, possibly 4 children in every class that are exhibiting these behaviours. In the first few weeks of prep, when we're evaluating for poor phonemic awareness, you can actually find that up to about 30% of your class have got poor phonemic awareness. This is not linked with intelligence, their oral language skills, parental involvement, where the school is, socioeconomic area. You can have probably at least 30% of your class who are going to struggle when you say s, p, I, n, to say that's the word spin. Or if you say which of the speech sounds you can hear in the word pant, they can't hear it's p, a, n, t. So we know from the beginning they're the children we really need to make sure right from the beginning that we're teaching in the way that's going to develop the phonemic awareness so that they are in a position to be able to use phonics. You'll also have some children, and it becomes probably your 2, 3, 4, who may have also other things that are going on. There may be an intellectual impairment, there may be some speech delay, there may be some cognitive issues going on. We really need to find out exactly what each child needs. Let me just evaluate these two children based on what I can see here and tell you what I need to see. Now you can use this as a teacher training, in-service teacher training. I want you to watch the two clips yourselves and then as a teaching group work out what it is that you've observed, what you need to see, what you would change. Just discuss what you can see because it's exactly the same as me, exactly the same as what I'm being presented with. And then watch the clips to say what I actually say about these two clips. If we keep just talking in general terms about theory or activities and what have you, we're never really going to move forward. We need to watch specific students to see what they do because you'll have them in your class. Children are children. The statistics of which children have this and which children have that and how children learn, it's going to be pretty much the same all across the country, even though you're going to have certain areas where you're going to have perhaps more speech and language issues. But when you actually come down to what is needed for reading and spelling, we actually see a lot of consistency across classrooms across Australia. So let's start being really specific about what we need to see and what we can do when we see certain things are missing, what we can do to extend children, and how we can make our teaching even better. That's what this is all about. We're all learning and we can all keep getting better every single day.
Girl, this is the chip monster. What does this say? Good girl. Big voice. This is the put monster. What does this say? Put. This is the it monster. What does this say? It. Good girl. This is the monster. What does this say? Good girl. We're going to write a word. We're going to write the word pan. Put at pan. Good girl. Can you find me the first monster for pan? Put. We need a put monster. Can you find the put monster? Keep looking. Here's the put monster. Can you put him down first for me? Let's say pan again. Put at pan. Good girl. What do we need after the put? What goes on number 2? Put at. Can you find me the at monster? Good girl. Put at. Can you find me the monster? This is the monster. Good girl. Let's see if you can find the sounds that go. Can you find the put? This is the put. Can you put it under the put monster? Good girl. Can you put the put under the monster? Put at pan. Can you find the letter, the sound pick for at? Find the sound pick for at. This one's the sound pick for at. Put at pan. Good job. Can you find the That's the one. Very clever. Can you tell me what word we just made? You say the sounds. Per. At. Clever girl. Do you think you can write the sounds for pan? Let's do the lines and numbers. Can you do the lines and numbers for pan? Can you code it for me first? Duck hands. Per. At. Good girl. Can you put the lines down now? Per. At. Can you have a check now? Let's play it. Per. At. read this one? Good girl. Okay, can you put the numbers? 1. It's okay. 1, 2, 3. Good girl.
So talk about what you just saw. And also think about, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why do we want them to look at the monster who says that sound, look at the picture of that sound in the green code level, which happens to be SATPIN? Why are we doing this? We're doing this so that when they look at the squiggles on the line, they know to start on the left and to go to the right. When there's a space in between, it means it's a new word. But they can follow the sound, say the word. Those squiggles represent a speech sound, so they can follow the speech sounds to say the word. If they didn't know the word straight away, which they will do, their brains will process it so quickly when they're so familiar with those sound picks. When they've just got those 6 symbols and they recognize them really quickly, the brain, within a nanosecond, is able to say Stan. But in the early stages, when it can't, it actually has to go through that process. What's the first sound, second, third, fourth? Put them together. So think of all those skills. Now, traditionally, phonics programs have said, to look at that S and to say S, and to look at the T and say T, etc. But what happens if a child, when you put st, and together, has no clue that is the word Stan? Because their brain is not able to process those sounds together, blend those segmented sounds together into the word to say the word Stan. Then all that happens then is that they just know the sound to say, but they can't use it. So we need to make sure all the time that they're putting those sounds together, they're blending those sounds together. Reading is actually a lot easier than spelling because you can see it already. They're already there, and they've just got to make that link. St, at, and stan. It, sit, and then go back to the whole thing. Stan, sit. The longer the sentence is, the more the working memory is taken up with the decoding, and then you go back to the beginning and they can't remember the whole sentence, let alone actually be thinking about what it means. And this is again why we need that fluency and that automaticity of recognizing the sound picks. It's much harder to spell the word if you can't see it in front of you, to say the word pan, for example, because think of all the skills that are involved. You've got to be able to hear that in the word pan there are those sounds, p, a, n, to then think, okay, well, which letter maps with the p, to put them in the right order to spell the word. So that is really hard. And if you can't hear in the word pan that it's the sounds p, a, n to start off with, how can you make the choices about which letters to choose? That's why spelling is so much harder. But that speech to print approach of when we're teaching encoding, that's the spelling, and decoding at the same time with the same sound picks, it brings it all together. Now, I'm going to talk about all these clips, but just think as well, in the green code level, we do st, a, and stan. So why do you have to be really careful in how you say the word p, a, n, pan?
Let's say pan again. P, a, n, pan. Good girl.
The speech sound king chose those 6 sounds and those 6 sound picks for the green code level. Listen to how he would decode, how he would read this text, because remember, he created the code. Nat and Pat. Nat and Pat sat. Nat and Pat sat in a pan. Pan. Nat and Pat sat in a pan and Santa sat in a tin. Now you read it using your Australian speech sounds. Is it the same? Nat and Pat. Nat and Pat sat. Nat and Pat sat in a pen. Nat and Pat sat, I can't do it, sorry, but you get the idea. The story of the speech sound king and the magic ant isn't just cute. We're not just having a story because this is children and we want it all to be lovely and with meaningful text. There's a reason. It's because the children need to understand that the spelling is based on the British speech sounds. So what you do is the children need to understand. Now, most children don't even consciously think about it. They'll go and they'll translate it into and. But the children who struggle, especially with the phonemic awareness, need to consciously understand. Say it as the speech sound does, as the speech sound king does. And. Yes, we say and. Translate it after. Otherwise, what you're doing with a child who's struggling anyway is telling them to blend the sounds p, a, n into pen, which is p, e, n. It's a different sound. Whereas if you, as the teacher, is constantly saying p, a, n, pan, then the child hears that even though they then translate to pen. And you often do hear the children speak with an English accent because they are blending it using the correct speech sounds for the word. And when I say correct, it's nothing about, there's nothing wrong with accents and what have you, but this is about spelling. This is about encoding and decoding, reading. You've got to blend the speech sounds together to say the word that those speech sounds blended together say. And in the green code level, the only sounds we're using are s, at, p, it, n. So you have to blend those 6 sounds. Don't change those sounds because of your accent. And it's a good idea to check the IPA. It's an internationally recognised way to understand the speech sounds that should be used when we say certain words. It helps English as a second language students. So if they wanted to know how to say the word pan, then they would look at the word pan and look at the IPA symbols. And what they'd see on the second one is this, because this represents a, p, a, n, pan. The symbols are on all the clouds. It's important that the children understand that this sound pick, these speech sounds have to be blended together according to the speech sounds we're looking at. Otherwise, yes, a vast majority of your children, they don't even have to think about it. They'll go gut or ass grass. And that's fine, and that's what you'll do. Like here, put atten pen. But that's not helpful for the children who struggle. You have to break it down. SSP is a skills acquisition process that's really detailed.
Let's say pan again. Pan. Good girl.
This is why a word like sit is so much easier for a child, because you say it, sit, and they can hear the word sit, and that's how they say it. So let's look at the next child. As I say, I'm going to go through all of the clips to really break them down. But let's have a look at the second clip.
Tell me what this monster says. Good girl. What does this monster say? Have another look. It's the at monster. Good girl. What does this monster say? Good girl. What does this monster say? Pup. This is the pup monster. What does this monster say? This is the it monster. What does this monster say? That's the monster. This letter here, or this sound pick, what sound does this say? Good girl. What's this a picture of? What's this one? This is the at monster. Good girl. What is this a picture of? Chuck. Good girl. What's this a picture of? Pup. And what's this a picture of? It. This is the it monster, and this says it. What's this a picture of? Good girl. Very well done. We're going to write or make a word with the monsters. We're going to make the word pan. Can you use your duck hands and help me? Pan. Good girl. Can you find me the monster that says pup? Can you put him on your board? Good girl. What do we need after the pup? At. Can you find the at monster for me? Oh, careful. That's the tip monster trying to trick you. Can you find the one that says at? That's the one. Good girl. Now we've got at, and now we need Oh, you know the monster, don't you? Good girl. Let's play it. Pan. Can you find the sound pick for per? What's it say? Per. Put that underneath the per monster. Can you find me the sound pick for app? Very clever. Oh, you knew what to do. What does it say?
Pen.
Can you use your duck hands and help me? Huh?
Pen.
Good girl. I like how you found the Do you think you can write the lines and numbers for pan for me? Let's try. Can you say it while you're doing it? Per. Good girl. Can you put the numbers on? Good girl.
Now, before I start, what I do is I nitpick every single thing the teacher says, every single thing she does. Nobody gets analysed in detail in the way that they do if they send me a video. But if you're a teacher who really does want to know every single detail of what they can do, then I'm the person to send it to, because I will tell you exactly what I think. Before I start, and because it might seem like I'm nitpicking on every single little thing, I want to say first of all, this teacher is wonderful. I absolutely love this teacher. She's patient, she's kind, you can hear it in her voice. This is exactly the kind of teacher I love to work with. And I thank her from the bottom of my heart, because this video is going to help other teachers. Thank you. Okay, so those of you who are fairly new to SSP, you'll know that there is a monster for every English speech sound. So each monster loves one particular speech sound. This monster, for example, loves the speech sound S. So this monster says S all the time, and he's listening for that sound in words. So if we say castle, or Christmas, or psychology, or 50 cents, or I'm wearing lovely scent today, I sat. So the sound is the same, but the picture of that speech sound is going to be different according to the words. So those words I just gave you, it might be an SC, or a PS, or an S, or a C, or an SS. So in the green code level, we just look at one of them. That is the letter S. So that's its name, but that's the one in the green code level. So the green code level is the sound S, A, and they have to be in this order. S, A, T. So he just loves T and thinks of all the pictures of T. This is monster P, and make sure you don't add a sound. So it's not P, it's P. And here's monster I. Monster N. Those speech sounds are quite difficult to say on their own, especially for young children, depends on their stage of development, but there are certain sounds that are more difficult than others. But those are sounds that are in the words that we say. Now if you cannot hear those speech sounds in words, then in effect all we're doing is saying, when you look at this monster, the monster loves so they're just memorizing, the same as I could tell you to look at this monster and memorize ooh, you know, some weird sound. If the children can't actually identify those individual sounds in words, it just becomes a memory game. It just becomes, when you look at this, make this noise. So just remember that. So when children are looking at the letter N and they're saying that doesn't actually mean they're going to be able to use that for code mapping. It's the phonemic awareness, that ability to hear those speech sounds, that enable the children to think, oh okay, so that's the and that's sitting with I and P. Then the word is going to be ip, nip. The word's going to be nip. These two children, I haven't actually seen enough, but I'm pretty sure that if I said ip, they would struggle to say that is the word snip. But they would especially struggle if I give them a word and ask them to give me the sound. So if I give them the word pin, that they will struggle to say pin, because their brains just can't isolate those speech sounds. They can't order them to put them together and to break them apart. And without that, they are not going to learn to read and spell, because they have to be able to do that, to link it with the letters, to be able to do that encoding and decoding. Obviously, reading is more than just decoding. It's for meaning, but they have to be able to do the decoding to be able to actually understand what they're reading. So let's have a look at these children, and I'll just tell you what I think about the clips that I have seen. What I actually need to see is the monster routine and speedy pair decoding or speedy decoding of a code level sentence. And I haven't seen that here, but I've seen enough to give recommendations.
Yeah, this is the Chat Monster. What does this say?
Children who don't struggle will interpret what you're saying, and they'll make sense of it and give you the right answer. The monsters say a sound, and they can see the physical, they can see the monsters, they're real things, they can move like them, what have you, and that monster says something. They understand that. People say things, dogs make sounds, cats make sounds, the monsters make sounds. The monster sounds are just happen to be s, at, p, it, n. So what sound does the monster love? What is the speech sound for this monster, what have you? But then when you're looking at the picture of the sound, it's got to be, what is this a picture of? Which speech sound is this a picture of? But it's easier just to say, and what's this a picture of? Because that's a picture of the speech sound t. That letter doesn't make anything. Letters can't make sounds. They can represent sounds, but they don't. This child doesn't understand that concept. So you must have it that here's the monsters, they love that sound, and if I take a picture of that sound up in the air, put it down on the board, this is what it looks like. It's the picture of the speech sound t.
Good girl. Big voice. This is the Put Monster. What does this say?
So the monster has a mouth, the monster says a sound. So what she should say here is, what is this a picture of? Or here's monster t. What's his sound? T. And which is this a picture of? T. So it's really simple, so they can see, okay, that's the monster. What does he say? T. What's the picture of his speech sound in the green code level? P. Here it is. And if you were to if the children knew letter names, you might say, and what's the name of this letter? The letter P. But don't add that confusion at the moment. It's too much and it's not relevant to the decoding. So get into the habit all the time. What sound does this monster say? T. So what is this a picture of? T. Oh, so they link.
This is the It Monster. What does this say?
Eat.
Good girl. This is the Monster. What does this say? Good girl.
Now this isn't the monster routine, and the monster routine is vital because it gives the children the opportunities to practice everything. So it should be the child looking at the visual prompt, choosing one, they say the word, duck hands to say the sounds, blend to say the word, draw the speech sound lines as they say the sounds, draw the speech sound numbers as they say the numbers, play it, choose the monsters, put them on the right lines, lift up the monster, put the sound pick on there, what's the picture for that sound, for that monster, play it, rub it all off and write the word 5 times, saying the sounds as you're doing it, put it and pin or what have you. So this isn't the monster routine. Now, at the moment, what the teacher has done is really just kind of gone through reinforcing s, at, put, it, and. But now we actually need to check that she understands it, because at the moment all she's done is just you've said, you know, s, and then she says s. She didn't get them all right, but we also know that she's not really confident on these, so do it again. Now I would point to the monster and say s, and then I would show my camera as I'm looking at the picture of it. So I'd go monster s, s, so that they're understanding that's the picture of s, and I would go through at to put it in. But then what I would do is I'd say monster s, and I'd ask the child to point to monster s, sound pick s, and the child points to sound pick s. I might do monster I, and the child's got to point to monster I, sound pick t, and the child's got to point to sound pick t. So they're understanding this is the monster and this is the sound pick. This is the picture of the sound. That's why we call it sound picks. Can you point to sound pick? And then you might point to a monster. What's the sound? Point to a sound pick. What's this a picture of? What's the sound? You know, so you're really making sure that although they're in that order, you're making sure they really do know the monster and the sound pick.
We're going to write a word. We're going to write the word pan. Pan.
So this is a very funny way of doing things for the brain, because you're starting really with a lot of the print rather than the speech. That's why we say the word, we do the duck cans, the lines, the numbers. The last thing we do is think about, well, what are the pictures of the sounds? So the pictures of the sounds are already out there, and now we're going to spell it. And it's just the wrong way round for the brain. So we really need to get these children doing the actual monster routine. Okay, so just then the teacher went, at and pan, and the child's doing it with them, but then the teacher needs to give the child an opportunity. Can you show me your duck cans for the word pan? And then let the child do left to right, at and pan. So you can check, is the child going from left to right, and are they doing a one-to-one correspondence? Are they using duck cans on the left and saying p at the same time, then the second one saying at? It's like one-to-one counting. Are they actually doing that sound as they're doing the duck action? So make sure the child does it without looking at you. Get them to close their eyes. Can you close your eyes and do the duck cans for pan? Check that they can do it. Give them 2 chances to practice it, because at the moment she says, just as I say, sort of followed the teacher. Now can she do it on her own?
Good girl. Can you find me the first monster for pan?
So this is what's making it so hard for the child. So can you find the first monster for the word pan? That's why we have the lines out, because they have to do the lines put, at and pan with no visual distractions of letters. Then they can actually see those lines and the numbers, so they actually can see the order. So when it's can you find the first monster, in their mind over the 1, 2, 3, they're going p, at and pan, and it's ordered, it's organized. So they can look at the number 1 line and the p and think, what sits on there? Which monster sits on there? P, at, and oh, it's monster p, monster p. Whereas what you're saying there is you have no guide, you haven't got the lines there, you've got poor phonemic awareness, so you're not naturally, you can't hold that in your head of which is the first, second and third sound and what have you, and you're saying which is the first sound in it. It's too hard. Do the monster routine.
P. We need a p monster.
So the child is being told which monster, but because the child can't hear those sounds, what you're really doing is like saying, you know, we want the we're saying we want the put monster, so it's just can you remember which one it is, but not really why. So you're just directing but not actually letting the child figure it out. So if the child had the lines out, can you play it put, at and pan? So which is the monster we need first? Monster p. Now can you find it? Because it might be that the child, when they're doing the speech sound lines and the numbers, they know it's a p there, they just can't remember which is the monster that is p. But they've got the skills, they have the skills, they just can't remember which monster. Whereas here it's the other way around, it's a focus on which is the monster rather than the skills to use the monster.
Can you find the put monster? Keep looking.
So it's just an identification of the put monster. The child doesn't know or isn't sure, and got your finger in front of the put monster. And what happens there is the child will, you know, grab the put monster, but has still learnt nothing at all that they need to learn. So you might have said, look, I'll go through the monsters. Let me show you the monsters. Monster s, monster a, monster t, monster p, monster I, monster n. Where's monster p? So it gives them a chance, and that's why you've always got in the stat pin order, because when they remember that's s, at, put, it, n, they can, even if they can't remember exactly which monster, they can follow that to track it so that they can learn it more easily. But don't point to it because it's just too obvious.
Here's the put monster. Can you put him down first for me?
Now she's been in prep for a term, so obviously she should be practiced now with knowing they're going from left to right. But you ask a child in the beginning stages, can you put this one first? First, what does first mean? You know, it's just in this sense, what we're asking the child to do is put it on the number 1 speech sound line. First is a word that a lot of the children won't understand its meaning. So this is why we need those lines there. So which goes on the number 1 speech sound line? What's the first speech sound? So you're actually teaching him what that means in the context of what you're doing. So have those lines out. Which is the first sound? So where does the monster go? So she can work it out. Now I just noticed as well in the corner that the teacher is actually holding up the picture for Pan, which is great that they're out, but that's what you do at the beginning. The child looks at the visual prompt so that they're looking at that picture of Pan, and then that's it. They don't need to look at it again. And actually holding it up there, kind of it's almost like it's saying to the child, this is important, but that's not. It's just a picture of a pan. She already knows it's the word pan, so that needs to go away. What matters is, what can you hear? So actually the most important learning would happen with your eyes closed. What can you hear? What's the word? What's the sound you can hear? Can you use your duck hands with your eyes closed? So just always think, when you're showing children things, pointing to it, highlighting it, whatever, it's actually saying to the child, this is important. And this isn't important at the moment. I don't really know why it's being held up. So always think, why am I doing this? For absolutely everything. Why am I doing this?
Let's say pan again. Pan. Good girl. What do we need after the p? What goes on number 2?
So what goes on number 2? There isn't a number 2 there. What you mean is, if there was a speech sound line there showing which would be the second, and that's why we need those lines there. Which goes on number 2 would make perfect sense. If we had 3 lines there, one of them had a number 2 on it, which goes on the number 2 line, which goes on number 2. But you're giving too many concepts here and the child doesn't understand them, so the child is constantly having to navigate with words and concepts she doesn't really understand. Again, monster routine. But here it's okay, so here we've got p. I would actually have drawn the lines there because I just can't have monsters not on lines. It's just visually, it's just not helpful for the child. So p, a, n. Duck hands again. What's the next one?
Can you find me the at monster?
It's so easy, isn't it, when we're watching this rather than when you're actually doing it. But it's really, really important to video yourself so you can actually analyse this as well. But look what just happened just then. You said put at and pen, and then ask the child what's the second sound, and actually the second sound in the word pen isn't an a. But how helpful will it have been if you had those lines, and also if she duck-handed over the speech sound lines, so you could have gone p, a, n, pan. What sits here? Which monster sits here? Because we need p, a, we need an a. So which monster is that? It's monster a. Can you find monster a? So it all comes together, whereas what keeps happening is she doesn't understand, and then you're actually giving her something to do that is just rote learning, or you've directed it so she's not really done anything except moved one card somewhere else.
Good girl.
So that was one of the first instances where she actually did something. You pointed and went p, a, and then before you said anything, she knew it's I actually think you missed that. We get so caught up with what we're thinking, what doing, and what's coming next, that we often miss what the children just did. So probably, there's only a few incidences where these children are actually doing things on their own, and that needs to be really, really highlighted. So she said, you said put a, and she said she gave the answer, and then you said and carried on. It was just you didn't really seem to acknowledge it. That was huge. That was the first one that she's actually done on her own. So I say really listen. So try and get out of that fuzz of what am I thinking, what am I going to do, what happens to what should happen next, and really listen. Take more time really listening. What is she saying? Why is she saying it? Does she understand this? And I know it's very difficult. You're being videoed and you're very conscious of that and being under the spotlight. And I really appreciate that you're doing this.
Can you find me the monster? This is the monster.
So you see how hard this is for her to navigate. There's so many bits of information and not in that logical order of the monster routine. This is why we start off with just say the word, duck hand the speech sounds, blend them into the word, speech sound lines and numbers. And for the first couple of weeks of prep, we don't use the sound picks at all because it's too much information. This child didn't get enough of that in the first few weeks, and she still really, really needs that. So she needs to just say that, point to the visual prompt, say the word duck hands, lines, numbers, stop. Nothing in front of her, no letters, no nothing. If she can't do that, she's actually not ready for the letters anyway. But we're doing the letters first, and it's the other way round, and this is just far too hard for this little girl. So she's got to remember the sound for the monster, even though those sounds don't mean anything to her because she can't really hear them in the words. She's got to remember the sound that the letters represent, even though she's not really sure of the sounds in the words. And then she's got to navigate the terminology when doing the activities. This is just too hard for her.
Good girl. Let's see if you can find the sounds that go.
So I say your terminology. We just did the sounds, the monster sounds. What you're going to ask her to do now is the pictures of the sounds, the sound pics. Don't call them sounds. They're not. They're representations of speech sounds. But the most important part for her would be to go back to that word pan with the monster, and a couple of times follow those monsters, follow the monster sounds, say the word. Can you duck hand those monster sounds over the monsters? And can you know, it's she needs that part far more than the letters. Teachers seem to focus on the letters. Well, the letters aren't going to help her at all at the moment because she just can't do the other stuff. So forget do not let the letters be the important thing. The important thing for here is that she looks at those monsters, says the sounds and blends them into the word without the distraction of the letters. But also she has just done the sounds. So think about your terminology.
Good girl. Let's see if you can find the sounds that go. Can you find the purr? This is the purr. Can you put it under the purr monster?
So anytime you're asking something and the child's is just not getting it, and you're telling the child what it is, they're not learning. You need to go back and you need to think, what does the child need here so they can become independent? So you said which are the sounds, and say you need to make it clear. The monsters say the sounds, here are the pictures. Actually use that sound. You get the child to hold their hands up and actually pretend to take a picture of the sound in the air. That's the picture of the sound down here. So now you've said where's the p, and actually she's a little bit confused. What do you mean here? You meant where's the picture of p, which one is it? And she could have gone s at p, it n. You tell me which one is it, but instead you've told her, so she's had no learning on this. She was asked for the sound p, and she knows that's monster p. And because she's been asked for it, she's reaching for it. That was brilliant. She actually did what you asked her. The problem was you didn't mean that. So now you're actually going to stop her doing what you asked her to do to correct her. So the brain again is thinking, what? I don't understand. You said this was the sound. You asked me for p. I found you p. Now you're going to move my hand away and you're going to put the p back in the position. What do you want me to do?
Can you put the p under the monster?
So the teacher's taken the p sound pick, given it to the child to say put it underneath the p. And like I said, again, the child's just not learning anything here, and the teacher's absolutely lovely. I mean, the mannerisms, everything with the child is lovely. The intention there is obviously fantastic, but the teacher really needs to use the monster routine, and the teacher really needs to understand what the child is interpreting from what they're saying, and that we have to be really, really clear about what we mean. What are the skills? What are the concepts? Here's monster p. He says the sound p. If we take a picture of p in the air, take a picture, what does it look like? Oh, it looks like this. Now, something I always ask teachers to do is they work in threes in professional development or just a staff meeting. They work in threes. One person is the teacher, the conductor, one person is the child, and the other person is watching, making notes, observing and videoing. Or just video if you can't make notes at the same time, but just video it and then analyse it together. because it gives you a chance to practice using the correct terminology and to practice the routine and the order, and then you just keep swapping around. You get a chance to practice it before you're doing it with the children, because every time you don't quite get the terminology right with the child, it makes it harder for that child. And as I say, a vast majority of children, that's fine because they'll understand what you meant. But these are the children who struggle in the system. That's sort of your 20 to 30% of children who struggle. And these are the children that you have to get absolutely everything right. Everything has to be clear and simple so that they get it.
Pan. Can you find the letter, the sound pick for at? Find the sound pick for at. This one's the sound pick for at.
So that was obviously much better because the teacher is trying to say the difference between the sound and the sound pick. So can you find me the sound pick? However, when the child obviously can't get it, instead of then reinforcing, just remember, here's the sound picks. S, a, t, p, I. Can you find me the picture for a? Which one was it? And then the child does it. So what again has happened now is because the child didn't get it, you're giving it to them. So the child is missing that middle part of being able to learn.
At, pan. Good job. Can you find the That's the one. Very clever.
So the child did that on her own. Brilliant. And it feels so good when she does that on her own. So now we've got the p, a, n out. So now she needs to duck hand over the top so it reinforces p, a, n, pan.
Can you tell me what word we just made?
Now I know it's really hard. The teacher here has a clear idea of what she wants the child to do, but the child actually is pointing and probably going to say p, a, n, pan. She's actually pointing to the push, so she knows she's starting on the left. So what is this word? She's going to figure out the word by going p, a, n, pan. But instead of just giving her a minute to give her answer, the teacher is about to tell her, you can follow the sounds. Well, I think she was going to do that anyway. So just be careful. Don't jump in too quickly. Just see what she does first and then respond to what she does rather than wanting exactly what you want straight away. And actually, sometimes you are going to get that.
You say the sounds?
Now I'm going to have to blur out her face a little bit, so it's a pity that you can't see her eyes and what her eyes are now going to look at. When she went to point to the monster, her brain is focused on what she's doing, what she's thinking about. Because she's been told to kind of stop, no, you can follow the sounds, whatever, she's now looking at the teacher, looking at what the teacher's doing, and it's actually taking away from the phonemic awareness development because she's trying to just copy now what the teacher says. Her eyes aren't looking at what it needs to be looking at. Her eyes are now looking at the teacher. Always look at where their eyes are, because their eyes need to be looking at those monsters to follow the sounds.
Per, a,
Fabulous. Now you follow the sounds, say the word on your own. Look at the monsters, follow the sounds, say the word. She does that. Now look at the sound picks. Follow the sound picks, follow the sounds, say the word. P, a, n, pan. If she gets stuck, then help her. But I think because they're out there, if you ask her to look at the monsters, she'll follow the monster sound, say the word. Ask her to look at the sound picks, she'll follow the speech sound, say the word. Let her have a chance to practice it now.
Do you think you can write the sounds for pan? Let's do the lines and numbers.
Do you think you can write the sounds for pan? That's one instruction. Let's do the lines. So you're actually giving two instructions there. And the reason I nitpick at such a level is because I work with children who really struggle, that you really have to be specific about the instructions you give, be really clear. If you give an instruction, the child then does that, or you're saying, right, we're going to write the words, so first we need to start with the lines. So you're making it clear why that links.
Can you do the lines and numbers for pan?
So we're doing this back to front, so she's actually not going to connect this with what we've just done. You've just done put the sound picks on, and now we're going to do the speech sound lines. So she's going to do the speech sound lines and not really link it with, as I say, what she's just done. The teacher might be expecting her to put the speech sound lines under the sound picks, I don't think she will.
Can you code it for me first?
So I'm the creator of code mapping and I'm not sure what this means. Can we code it first? What's that? So she's actually starting to do the lines, and she's actually probably doing exactly what you just said. Can you do the lines and numbers for the word pan? So she's starting to get on with it, but that's not what you wanted her to do. And I'm not sure really what it is you wanted her to do, whether it was put the lines under the letters, but she's actually doing what she's supposed to be doing. And now you're going to say, hold on, can you code it first? I don't know what you mean from that. So are you going to ask her to do duck hands first and then do the lines? This is just so out of order from the monster routine. That's why the monster routine is in that specific order. So once you actually start doing that, once this teacher starts doing the monster routine, a lot of all of the issues are going to fall away.
Duck hands.
Bless her heart, she's just trying to do the speech sound lines. And I'm not sure if this child is getting lots of different people doing a monster routine in different ways, because yeah, I'm not sure if she's getting different people, because she now is clear, you know, can you do the lines and numbers for pan? So that's what she's trying to do.
Per, at, Good girl. Can you put the lines down now? Per, at,
Teachers, we tend to sort of often have what we want in our minds, and if the child doesn't do it, it's keep no, no, no. But when you say do your lines and numbers, that's exactly what the child was trying to do. And by moving things around, it's just really confusing for this child to know what she's supposed to be doing. And also because the lines after the fact, you know, the lines are supposed to be first of all, so we know where the speech sound lines are, so we know where the so we know where the monsters are going to sit, and then we move the monsters up so we know which are the pictures for the sounds. Whereas this is the other way around. The monsters, then the sound pics, then the speech sound lines. And as I say, if this child is getting the monster routine in the correct order with somebody else, this is going to confuse her. That's why the monster routine is so important, and that's why it's listed exactly with the order that you follow, so there's a consistency for everybody. Especially if you've got a child who needs help, that child needs the same help consistently from everybody. So just watch this part again. She's going to be, can we write the sounds for this word? Can you do the lines and numbers? The child starts to do the lines and numbers. Then the child is asked to code it. Then the child is asked to do duck hands. So that's 4 different instructions in about 4 seconds.
Do you think you can write the sounds for pan? Let's do the lines and numbers. Can you do the lines and numbers for pan? Can you code it for me first? Duck hands. Per, at, Good girl. Can you put the lines down now? Per, at,
So the child's right back at where she was in the first place when asked to do lines and numbers. This is exactly where the child was.
Can you have a check now? Let's play it. Per, at, Do we need this one? Good girl.
So that's why we do this at the beginning. P, at and pan, do the speech sound lines, and she has to do the speech sound lines as she's doing it. You saw just then she was just drawing lines. She's not going p, a, as she's drawing the lines. And also, because she's done too many, rather than can you play the speech sound lines? So the child goes put at and realizes she's got too many lines and rubs it off. She's being told there's too many lines and told which one to rub off. So again, think of the skills and the concepts we need these children to understand. We need them to do their duck hands, then we need them to do the speech sound lines. They say the sounds as they're drawing the lines, then they play it. So they're working all of that out before we've got that distraction of letters and whatever, whereas we've already got those distractions on the board. And now really what she's being asked to do is actually map up those lines with what's there, and this concept is just far too hard, you know, for her at the moment. We do that when it's a child spelt the word incorrectly. Supposing they'd spelt the word thief and they'd put TH EEF, then we'd say, can you code map it? So we want them to underline the TH and the EE and the F, and then we say, right, your number 2, that sound pick needs to change. So we're being specific. So if I'm saying, can you code map this word pan, I mean, can you show where the sound picks are? So can you put the lines underneath? But she doesn't yet have that ability to independently duck hand the word pan and do the speech sound lines pan, let alone actually map those up with those letters yet. So again, this is just too back to front with regards to how she needs to be taught and how she needs to learn really effectively.
Okay, can you put the numbers? 1. It's okay. 1, 2, 3.
Now what we need is the child to say p, a, n as they're drawing 1, 2, 3. If they can't draw 1, 2, 3 easily and can't say the sounds, then choose number cards, so they just put them there, or let her draw the 1, 2, 3 first, and then she needs to go back and okay, now follow the sounds. So she follows the p, a, n on the lines, and then you can point to the 1, 2, 3 and say again p, a, n. So her brain looks at the number 1 and here's p, looks at the number 2 and here's a, looks at number 3 and here's n. So p, a, n, pan, as I say, really we want as quickly as possible that they draw the lines as they're saying it, draw the numbers as they're saying it. Then look at those speech sound lines and say the sounds. Now the video actually cut off, but what we then want to do is make sure that they all do come together. So those speech sound lines, p, a, n, well, which is the monster? Let's put the monster on the speech sound lines. P, a, n, pan. Brilliant. Now which is the picture for p? Put it on the line. So she needs to connect up what she's just done. Now I can't see her visual prompt card out, but you must make sure you've got it out, so when you've pointed to pan, she knows what the picture is, the visual prompt for pan. And this is especially important if the children, for example, English is a second language, they might not know what a pan is, so use those visual prompts. So this is just the first part of the routine. They choose it, or you point to it, they say the word, so they've linked the visual with the word, and you can explain what it means if you need to. Then you get on with building the word, and try and use the word build or spell. We're going to spell this word. I often say to the children, let's encode this word, let's spell this word, and the children very quickly get to understand what encoding means, or spelling, and decoding, which is just follow the sound, say the word for reading. So just a reminder of the monster routine. They need to follow this monster routine like this.
Ready? Okay, let's go. Can you tell me what this monster says? Good girl. What does this monster say? Have another look. It's the a monster. Good girl.
So that's great. So rather than waiting because she doesn't know what it is, the teacher says, this is monster a. So this is monster a. What's his speech sound? A. So it's monster a. That's his name, is monster a. And what's his speech sound? What's he say? A. So just practice how you say this. This is monster a. What does he say? A. And you might think that's logical, but for a lot of the children with poor phonemic awareness and who aren't making the connections, you say, here's monster a. What does he say? And they might say, balloons. So repeat and reinforce. Here's monster a. He says a.
What does this monster say? Good girl. What does this monster say? P. This is the P monster.
This is the P monster. He says P. Or this is monster P. He says P. And make sure it's P, not P.
What does this monster say? This is the it monster.
This is the I monster, and she says I. Or this is monster I, and she says I.
What does this monster say? That's the monster.
This is the monster, and he says Or this is monster he says Reinforce.
This letter here, or this sound pick, what sound does this say?
So she got a little bit confused with her concepts there. Is it a letter? Is it a sound? And that's what teachers often do, especially if they've been used to saying, what sound does this letter make? And the teacher knows we don't say that because letters don't make sound. So it's, what's the terminology? So practice the terminology. Before you're going to say it, practice what you're going to say in your head. Even if you just say, hold on 1 minute, and just think to yourself, what am I going to say? Here's monster. So what is this a picture of? It's one of the pictures of the speech sound S. Here's monster S. So what is this a picture of? S. And actually take that picture. Pretend you're taking a picture and do it over the top of that picture of S. Here's monster S. What is it a picture of? Look, this is one of the pictures of the speech sound S. You need to talk like that, so practice that, because it's this terminology that makes it meaningful to the students.
Good girl. What's this a picture of? What's this one? This is the at monster. Good girl. What is this a picture of? Good girl. What's this a picture of? And what's this a picture of? It. This is the it monster, and this says it. What's this a picture of? Good girl. Very well done. We're going to write or make a word with the monsters. We're going to make the word pan.
So we're going to build the word pan. Can you say the word? The child says the word pan. Let's think about the speech sounds in the word pan. Can you duckhand those speech sounds? P, a, n, pan. Now we need to think about the speech sound lines. Can you draw the speech sound lines for p, a, n, pan? Can you do the numbers for pan? P, a, n, pan. Can you play the word p, a, n, pan? Which monsters do we need? Think about the number 1. Which monster sits on the number 1? P, a, n, pan. Which monster do you need? Choose the monster. Which monster do you need on the number 2? A. Which monster do you need on the number 3? N. P, a, n, pan. We've built the word pan using the monsters. And then you think about the sound pics. So it's logical, it makes sense, speech to print. And the children understand the concept of it.
Can you use your duck hands and help me? P, a, n, pan. Good girl.
So we did the word and we've done the duck hands, but the child hasn't done the duck hands on their own yet, and you haven't watched the child to see if the child can do it on their own. The child has just copied you again.
Can you find me the monster that says P?
Okay, so you can see what should happen now. So the child should have chosen a visual prompt, or the teacher chooses the visual prompt. The child says the whole word, pan. The child duck hands it, draws the lines and numbers, so that's the bit should be coming now. So so this routine is just the wrong way around, and because of it you'll see the same errors, because the child is having to be, is being asked to do too many things that they're not ready for. We need to get this routine. What I want to see from this teacher is the children actually following the routine. Then you will see that the children will pick it up because they're scaffolding the learning. So they're actually starting from the bottom up and building up those, developing those foundations. At the moment it's kind of like, well, we'll layer a bit of the foundations, but then we'll start on the roof, and then we'll do a bit of the windows, rather than, okay, what do we do if we're going to build a house? It has to be logical, otherwise it's going to fall apart, and or the foundations aren't going to be solid, or there are going to be bits that won't fit in because you're not ready for that. Think about building a house and the planning that goes into it. That's exactly what I've done for you with the monster routine. I've planned it all out based on making sure that the brain can put all those bits together to create a solid foundation for building those words.
Can you put him on your board? Good girl. What do we need after the P? P, a, n. Can you find the at monster for me? Oh, careful, that's the T monster trying to trick you. Can you find the one that says at? That's the one.
So when I first got these two clips, I actually thought they were both the same clip, and that was because I was just rushing to get to a flight, and I just quickly watched them and I thought it was the same clip. But that's because the teacher is doing the same things, which actually means the teacher is making the same errors but with two different children. So what we need to do is we need to get the monster routine, and the teacher has her routine of doing things of what she expects the children to do. But the problem is, if that's different for different teachers, then the children are going to become confused. And also it's very difficult for these children, unless they're doing it with this particular person every single day, to know exactly what this teacher wants them to do. So this routine, that's why I was confused, because I thought I was watching the same child, but really it was the same teacher doing the same things.
Girl. Now we've got P, a, and now we need n. Oh, you know the n monster, don't you? Good girl.
And can you see how the teacher directions are the same? And so this child as well identified the found the monster.
Let's play it. P,
four,
pen.
It's like, you know, when someone's singing and they're trying to copy somebody else who's singing, it's like and they're just following it straight after them, even though they don't actually know the words. And that's what this child is doing. So teacher is saying the sounds, and directly afterwards the child is just repeating back, but the child has no idea what they're supposed to be doing. They're just copying what the teacher's saying. And then because then there's not the reinforcement, put, at, and pan, do your duck cans, let me see, put, at, and pan. The teacher is then not able to see if the child actually is understanding, because then the child seemed to be saying the right things, but they're not. She's just copying.
Can you find the sound pick for P?
So remember how the other child was asked to find the sound pick for P and couldn't find it, so then the teacher pointed. Well, now the teacher isn't actually waiting for the child to do it. Now she's pointing to it straight away, so the child is just going to pick up the one that was just pointed to. And this is the thing, teachers, when they watch this and they watch themselves doing this, absolutely cringe, because they can see, and all you need to do is watch yourself doing things with one child. The second child, you're thinking, I know this already now, I can see exactly what I did. So what happens is teachers at first are focusing on why is the child not learning, what's kind of wrong with the child, whatever. What happens when you watch yourself being videoed? You start to think, that's why, because of my instruction. And as hard as it might be for our egos, for all of us, myself included, I watch some things and I just absolutely grimace. You know, I've watched videos of me saying pa and what have you. When I teach the fact that we don't add sounds, you know, we all do it. We all must watch ourselves. It makes us much better teachers. Obviously, I'm going to make less mistakes because I've been doing this so long and I know exactly the routine. It's relatively easy for me, but it's practice, and it's relatively easy to be honest, for anybody once you practice. But stick to the routine, be very careful about your choice of words, practice what you're going to say before you say it, and give the child a chance to do it. If they can't, show them, but then give them a chance to do it afterwards. So it's just repetitive. It's the skills acquisition process, so let them develop the skills themselves, not just follow you. I do, we do, you do is a good approach from Fleming and what have you.
What's it say?
paw,
Put that underneath the put monster.
It doesn't say anything. It's a picture for the sound. The monster's the one that says something. The monster's the one that says ah. Here's the picture for that speech sound, ah. Can you put it underneath the monster? But again, all of these things, do the monster routine and none of these errors happen, because the monster routine takes care of those building blocks, and then it's much easier for the teacher to actually step in when is needed, and it's also a lot easier for the child to develop independence and to actually work this out and develop those skills that are so essential.
Can you find me the sound pick for ah? Very clever.
But also much easier because you said, can you find me the sound pick for ah? The sound pick, they're the letters. Can you find me the sound pick for ah? It's a lot more direct, a lot more specific. The language was much better there, and therefore the child finds it easier to find what is needed.
Oh, you knew what to do. What does it say?
Hold on a second. Well done. That is the sound pick for Now, can you follow the sounds? Tell me the word. Instead, what you've just said, did it right, and now what does it say? What does what say? The monster that you've just chosen the sound pick for? Or the word? What is it? So you jumped ahead because she got it right. You didn't even really get a chance to celebrate what she just did right and identify it before you're going on to the next concept. So now she's just done something really well, and now she's going to be a little bit confused about what it is you want her to do.
pen,
Can you use your duck hands and help me?
So she did the you said, what does it say? And she said pan. And now instead of saying, yes, it does, that's the word pan, now you're kind of acting as if she hasn't done it right. So now can you show me your duck hands? Where did duck hands come into this? She just did put at she chose the right what does it say? Pan. Great. I'm trying to understand now the teacher thought process here, because the child is actually, both children actually have done quite a lot of the stuff that is being asked, and then is also almost being then told to do something else. And the problem with this as teachers is if we have in our mind what we want, we get blinded by that, and so we lose track of what the children are actually achieving, because they're not achieving what you want them to achieve, even though they are actually achieving some really good stuff.
Huh? Good girl. I like how you found that.
So I love that she found the n as well, but that was seconds ago, and between that you've asked her to do the duck hands. And also when she did the duck hands again, she's doing the duck hands following, she's not actually looking at the letters as she's doing it, she's looking at the teacher. So really what we needed to do there was now look at the letters or look at the monsters. So look at the monsters and duck hands the sound. So she actually looks at the monster puh as she's saying puh, and then now let's do it with the sound picks. Are you looking at the sound picks? And that's when the teacher could point to the sound picks puh, and the child is doing duck hands over the top. So the child is not looking at the teacher, the child is looking at what they need to look at, and the brain is hearing, they're hearing the sounds, blending it into the word. And don't be quick to take the stuff away. We've got there the monsters and the sound picks underneath. Yes, it's the wrong way around, but as in we haven't got the lines there, then the monsters, then the sound picks. But whilst they're there, just sit for a second, just have a look at it. Can you follow the sound? Just give her a chance to just take it in.
Do you think you can write the lines and numbers for Pan for me? Let's try.
So we've watched the teacher do the routine already, or her routine already, so we know that what she means is put the lines underneath the sound picks like code mapping. So when she's saying, let me see you doing the lines and numbers, let's see what this child does. Let's see if they just start doing lines, no sounds, they just start doing lines, and if they get the right number of lines. We can't hear, we don't know what they're thinking, that's why they have to say the sounds as we're doing it. But let's see if this child has the same errors as the first child, because the instruction here is just do your lines and numbers. Let's see what this child does compared to the other child, because the consistent person here is the teacher in the instructions given.
Can you say it while you're doing it? Puh. Good girl.
So perhaps she doesn't want the children to link up those lines with the words. I can't actually see because it's just out of focus. Great there though that the teacher is asking the child to say the sounds as they're doing the lines, because then the child is going to know if they've got the right number of speech sounds and if they're saying the... I didn't hear, let's hear it again. I thought the child just went puh, and then because the teacher is saying puh, and that's actually two sounds. So the child is hearing puh, is hearing the puh and then the so it's a puh, and then that's, you can understand where the confusion would be. So it's got to be puh, but the teacher's saying puh. So I think the child actually says puh and then says an on the second line, and then a which would actually be pun. Let's just hear if the child actually just does say puh, Listen for that puh. Listen for that puh.
Can you say it while you're doing it? Puh. Good girl.
So the sounds I heard were puh, Interesting.
Can you put the numbers on? Good girl.
I would have loved to have seen that, to see whether she was actually drawing the numbers, because she said the sounds much more correctly. She said the sounds, the first one was a bit fuzzy, but she said and then Was she doing the numbers while she did that? And then of course then the video cut off, so I'm not sure if then, she played it, if she was then able to put the monsters on the lines and the sounds on the lines and bring it all together and what have you. I hope you found that useful. I know it's very, very hard if you're watching that. Sorry, I kind of go from the teacher and then you, and usually I'm doing this directly to a teacher, but I'm aware now that we're doing this obviously to help other teachers. And thank you so much to this teacher for putting themselves out there saying, I need help with this student, because what ends up happening is I'm actually helping you, the teacher, understand what is needed for you to correct so that the student can learn. Students come with all different things that they have, but for us to really help them, we as teachers need to understand what we're doing, what our part is. We can be so focused on the student and the fact that they're not getting it, and lose sight of the fact that if they're not getting it, we're not teaching it simply enough. We're not teaching it in the way that they are understanding. So we have to change what we're doing. There's a professor in the States who calls children who can't read when they're teenagers and whatever NBTs, never been taught. They've been in school, but they've never been taught in the way they understand. And actually, I'll have those children and they'll quickly learn to read and spell. And everyone will say, well, why? What's different? What's different is that I'm using strategies that those children understand. So I'm actually teaching, because you're not really teaching if the child's not learning. You can be using words, you can be doing activities, but it's only teaching if the student is learning. So that's why he calls them MBTs. They've never been taught. They've been in school for 10 years. They still can't read and they certainly can't spell. But then the vast majority of children that are, NBTs, 10 years in school, the vast majority of children, 95% of children, will learn to read and spell when you change the instruction. There's only a small percentage that won't, but you still can push them along in the skills acquisition process. So thank you so much. Send me your videos. I need to see the monster routine, and I need to see them with code level text, and I need to see them follow the sound, say the word, then say the sentence. I'd like to see these two students doing the monster routine and the sentence in another 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but actually following the monster routine. They need to do the monster routine with at least 2 words every single day, but it needs to follow this procedure. The children need their own monster routine pack that they can take home. They have their own visual prompts. They have their 6 monsters, they have a board and a pen and what have you, and they do this on their own. You really want to have it so that the teacher or the parent is supervising, but hardly gets involved at all. So to start off with, the teacher can point to the line, choose a visual prompt. The child chooses the visual prompt, then point to the next one. Say the word, and they say it. You point to the next one. Duck hand it. So what ends up happening very quickly is when you then point to the next line, even though the child can't read these lines, they know what the next instruction is. That's how the brain works. So your aim, if you're a teacher, is to get the children to be able to do this procedure with green level words within 3 weeks. Let me know how you go. So the new standalone monster mapping pack for the green code level, but also giving information for the other 4 code levels, but the focus on the green code level to get you started is sspmonstermapping.com.